Welcome back to Audible Archives. I'm Nayara, and tonight we begin Mistwoven Legends, Threads of the Forgotten. The dreamscape of Dormiria is unraveling. Whispers bleed through the veil, marks of the abyss burn brighter, and Reverie must walk the fragile line between light and shadow. In chapters 1 to 10, the council fractures, secrets buried in the Codex surface, and betrayal comes from where it's least expected. The Forgotten stir, and their threads are pulling tighter. Before we begin, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, because this journey is only growing darker, and every voice helps us keep the legend alive.
Chapter 1. Echoes in the Vale. The air in Dormiria seemed heavier than usual, laden with an intangible unease. Reverie moved through the ethereal streets, their senses attuned to every shift in the dream realm's delicate balance. Dormiria, a place of serene beauty and structured harmony, now bore faint traces of discord. It was subtle, too subtle for most dreamweavers to notice, but Reverie's attunement to the dreamscape made the distortions impossible to ignore. They paused near a fountain whose waters flowed upward in a mesmerizing dance of light and motion. Today, however, the flow was erratic, its rhythm fractured. Reverie reached out with their essence, probing the anomaly. The fountain's core pulsed with something unfamiliar, something that resonated faintly with the abyssal mark they had fought so hard to suppress. Reverie, a voice called from behind. It was Lyrian, one of the younger dreamweavers who often sought their guidance. "Are you all right? You've been staring at that fountain for quite some time." Reverie turned, forcing a smile. "Just observing. It seems off, doesn't it?" Lyrian frowned, tilting their head as they studied the fountain. "I don't see anything unusual. Are you sure you're not just tired? You've been taking on a lot of tasks lately." "Perhaps," Reverie said, though they knew exhaustion wasn't the culprit. They waved Lyrian off with a reassuring gesture. "Go on. I'll catch up later." As Lyrian departed, Reverie's gaze returned to the fountain. The distortion had faded, leaving no trace of its earlier anomaly. Yet the lingering unease remained, a whisper at the edge of their awareness. Over the following days, similar distortions appeared across Dormiria. Dream light that once shimmered with perfect clarity now flickered unpredictably. Pathways through the realm twisted in subtle, disorienting ways, leading even seasoned weavers astray. Reverie's investigations yielded no clear answers, only more questions. The whispers began shortly after. At first, they were faint, indistinct murmurs carried on the edges of their perception. Reverie dismissed them as residual echoes from their last encounter with the abyss. But as the days passed, the whispers grew clearer, forming fragments of words and phrases. The veil weakens. Truth lies in shadow. The abyss watches. Reverie's nights grew restless, filled with fragmented dreams and haunting visions. In one, they stood on the precipice of a vast chasm, the abyss stretching endlessly below. A figure cloaked in shadow extended a hand toward them, its voice a blend of countless tones. "Step forward, and you will see." They always woke before they could respond. Unable to shake the feeling that something was fundamentally wrong, Reverie sought out Master Kalen, one of the oldest and most knowledgeable members of the council. Kalen resided in a secluded part of Dormiria, where the dreamscape's essence was particularly concentrated. "Master Kalen," Reverie began, bowing respectfully as they entered the elder's chamber. "I need your insight. There have been disturbances in Dormiria. Anomalies I can't explain." Kalen's deep-set eyes regarded them with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Describe these anomalies, Reverie. Leave nothing out. Reverie recounted everything: the flickering dream light, the distorted pathways, the whispers, and the visions. As they spoke, Kalen's expression grew grave. "These are troubling signs," Kalen said after a long silence. "The veil between Dormiria and the Abyss is not impenetrable, but such disturbances are rare and often fleeting. For them to persist." The elder's voice trailed off, their thoughts clearly racing. "Do you think the Abyss is trying to breach Dormiria?" Reverie asked, their voice tinged with both fear and curiosity. Kalen's gaze sharpened. "Perhaps, or perhaps it is something more insidious. The Abyss does not act without purpose, and its influence is not always direct. You must tread carefully, Reverie. Do not let your curiosity lead you astray." Despite Kalen's warning, Reverie's curiosity only deepened. They began scouring the Codex of Reveries for any mention of the veil and its connection to the Abyss. The ancient text was dense and often cryptic, but Reverie's persistence paid off. In a passage hidden within a faded chapter, they found a chilling account of a time when the veil had weakened before. The record spoke of dream weavers lost to shadow, their essence corrupted by abyssal influence. It described whispers that lured the unwary, promising knowledge and power but delivering only ruin. The passage ended with a stark warning. The veil is a safeguard, not a barrier. When it frays, only unity can mend it. Division will hasten its fall. Reverie leaned back, their thoughts a storm of conflicting emotions. The account mirrored their experiences too closely to dismiss. But unity, as the text suggested, felt impossible. The council's rigid adherence to tradition left little room for questioning, and Reverie's growing doubts about Dormiria's infallibility isolated them further. One night, unable to sleep, Reverie wandered to the edge of Dormiria, where the dreamscape blurred into the infinite expanse of potential. Here, the veil's presence was tangible, a shimmering barrier that separated Dormiria from the unknown. Reverie extended a hand toward the veil, their essence brushing against its surface. It felt both solid and fluid, warm and cold. For a moment, they saw something beyond, a swirling mass of shadow and light, chaotic yet oddly compelling. The whispers returned, louder and clearer than ever. "You seek answers, but they hide the truth. The veil is not your shield, it is your cage." Reverie pulled back, their heart racing. The experience left them shaken, but also more determined than ever. Something was happening, something the council either didn't understand or refused to acknowledge. And if they wouldn't act, Reverie knew they must. The next day, Reverie stood before their reflection in a pool of still dreamlight. The mark on their essence, faint but undeniable, pulsed rhythmically. It was a reminder of the Abyss's presence, a connection they hadn't chosen but could no longer ignore. "If the veil is fraying," they murmured to themselves, "then I need to understand why. And if the Abyss holds the answers, I'll find them on my terms." With renewed resolve, Reverie began preparing for a journey that would take them to the edges of Dormiria and beyond. The echoes in the veil were not just a warning, they were a call to action. And Reverie intended to answer it, no matter where it led. Chapter 2: The Fragmented Dream. Reverie strode through the crystalline halls of the Weaver's sanctum, the faint hum of Dormiria's dream essence resonating beneath their feet. Today's assignment was routine, a fractured dreamscape needing stabilization. For a dream weaver of Reveries' skill, it should have been an effortless task, a reprieve from the unsettling anomalies they'd been encountering. As they approached the shimmering portal leading to the assigned dream, Reverie couldn't shake the sense of unease that had settled over them since their discovery of the Veil's disturbances. The whispers, though faint, lingered at the edge of their mind, tempting them to explore the unknown. With a steadying breath, Reverie stepped into the portal. The transition was seamless, a cascade of light and sound that coalesced into the dreamscape. The dreamscape was a sprawling meadow under a twilight sky, dotted with blooming flowers that glowed faintly in the dim light. It was picturesque at first glance, but Reverie's practiced eyes immediately noted the inconsistencies. The horizon flickered, as if struggling to maintain its form, and the air was thick with an oppressive energy that didn't belong. Reverie reached out with their essence, weaving threads of stability into the dream. As they worked, the oppressive energy seemed to resist, pushing back against their efforts. A faint chill ran down their spine. Strange, they muttered. Dreams don't usually fight back. A rustling sound drew their attention. From the shadows of a nearby grove, figures emerged, tall, indistinct forms cloaked in darkness. Their features were obscured, but their presence was unmistakably abyssal. Reverie's heart raced as they stepped back, instinctively raising a protective weave around themselves. "Who are you?" Reverie demanded, their voice steady despite the fear clawing at their chest. The figures didn't answer immediately. Instead, they stood in eerie silence, their forms shifting like smoke. Finally, one of them stepped forward, its voice a haunting blend of echoes. "You know us, Reverie. We are the shadows that linger at the edge of your sight, the truths you dare not seek." Reverie's breath caught. The voice was chillingly familiar, a distorted reflection of the whispers they had been hearing for weeks. "I don't know what you mean," they said, though the tremor in their voice betrayed their uncertainty. "I am here to stabilize this dream, nothing more." The figure's shadowy form seemed to ripple with amusement. "Stabilize? You misunderstand, Dreamweaver. This dream is not broken. It is evolving. The abyss reaches for you because it knows your potential. You can resist or you can embrace it. The choice is yours." Reverie's protective weave tightened instinctively. "Stay back," they warned. "I'm not interested in your games." The figure didn't advance, but its companions began to circle around, their movements synchronized and deliberate. "The abyss is not your enemy, Reverie," it continued. "It is a mirror showing you what Dormiria hides. Seek the Codex, and you will find the answers you crave." "What do you mean?" Reverie asked, their voice rising with frustration. "What does the abyss want from me?" The figure's form began to dissolve, its final words a whisper carried on an unseen wind. "Not everything in shadow is meant to harm. Not every light is meant to guide." As the figures vanished, the oppressive energy dissipated, leaving the dreamscape eerily silent. Reverie took a moment to steady themselves, their mind racing with questions. What had just happened? Why did these abyssal entities know their name? And what was the Codex they had mentioned? Pushing their doubts aside, Reverie refocused on the task at hand. The dream's instability hadn't resolved itself, and the mortal dreamer's essence was beginning to fragment under the strain. Reverie moved swiftly, weaving threads of harmony and balance to restore the dreamscape structure. As they worked, a faint residue of abyssal energy lingered in the air, defying their attempts to purge it completely. It clung to the dream like an unwanted guest, a reminder of the encounter they couldn't explain. When the dream finally stabilized, Reverie stepped back, their energy drained but the task complete. Yet, the questions remained, gnawing at the edges of their thoughts. The encounter had left more than just a mark on the dream. It had left a mark on them. Back in Dormiria, Reverie reported the incident to the council, omitting the details of the abyssal figures and their cryptic words. The council listened with concern, but dismissed the anomaly as a minor disturbance, a ripple in the dreamscape's natural flow. "There is no need for alarm," one of the elders said. "Dreams are delicate things, prone to occasional disruptions. Focus on your duties, and leave such matters to us." Reverie nodded, but their heart was heavy. The council's dismissal only deepened their unease. They knew what they had seen, and it was far from ordinary. Later, in the solitude of their chambers, Reverie retrieved the Codex of Reveries. The ancient text was vast and cryptic, its pages filled with the collective knowledge of Dormiria's dreamweavers. If there were answers to be found, they would be here. As they began to search, the whispers returned, faint and insistent. "Seek the Codex, and you will find the answers you crave." Reverie's fingers hesitated on the pages, a chill running down their spine. They didn't know what they would uncover, but one thing was certain. The shadows of the abyss were no longer content to remain at the edges of their world. And Reverie's journey into the unknown had only just begun. Chapter 3. The Abyssal Mark. The dream light of Dormiria bathed Reverie's chamber in a serene glow, yet their mind buzzed with unease. For days now, an unfamiliar sensation had been tugging at their essence, a faint itch that no meditation could soothe. Tonight, it was impossible to ignore. Reverie lowered their gaze to their translucent hands, and for the first time, they saw it clearly, a mark etched into their essence. The symbol wasn't static. It pulsed faintly, shifting like a living thing. Its edges alternated between light and shadow, and an otherworldly energy emanated from it. Reverie leaned closer, studying its details. It wasn't Dormirian in origin, of that they were certain, yet it felt familiar, as though it had always been a part of them, waiting to be revealed. Reverie reached out with their essence, probing the mark. A shock wave rippled through their form, sending them reeling. For a brief moment, a whisper echoed in their mind. Incomprehensible, yet filled with weight and intention. They gasped, clutching their chest. "What is this?" Reverie murmured aloud, though no one was there to answer. The following morning, Reverie sought the wisdom of the council. The Hall of Lucid Whispers, an expansive chamber made of shimmering crystal, stood as Dormiria's center of authority. Its walls bore ancient carvings of dream-weaving techniques, and the air thrummed with latent power. Reverie entered hesitantly, their gaze darting to the gathered elders. Elder Marin, with his calming presence, was the first to speak. "Reverie, you look troubled. What brings you before us?" Without a word, Reverie raised their hands, revealing the mark. Gasps echoed through the hall. Elder Sale stepped forward, her sharp eyes narrowing as she scrutinized the sigil. "This mark," Sale muttered, her voice tinged with unease. "It is abyssal. There is no doubt." "Abyssal?" Reverie's voice trembled. "How? I've done nothing to—" "The abyss does not always require invitation," Sale interrupted. Its influence can seep into even the strongest of essences. Tell us, when did this appear? Reverie recounted their recent sensations and the mark's sudden manifestation. The elders exchanged uneasy glances. Elder Marin sighed deeply. This is not the first time we have seen such a mark. It appears only in those who have been touched directly or indirectly by the abyss. Reverie shook their head. But I haven't engaged with the abyss, not intentionally. I've followed the teachings, upheld the laws. That may be true, Sale said, her voice laced with skepticism. But the abyss is insidious. Its touch is not always obvious. This mark could be a sign of tampering or a harbinger of corruption. Determined to act quickly, the council arranged for a cleansing ritual to purge the mark. Reverie stood in the center of a chamber bathed in pure light, surrounded by the elders. Their combined energies formed a shimmering dome, trapping the mark's influence within its bounds. The ritual began with low, resonant chants. Waves of light washed over Reverie, each one probing their essence, seeking to expel the mark. At first, the process was soothing, the energy flowing harmoniously. But as the light touched the mark, it recoiled violently, flaring with dark energy. Reverie's form flickered as pain shot through them. It's fighting back, they gasped. Hold steady, Elder Marin commanded. We can cleanse it. The elders intensified their efforts, but the mark resisted fiercely. Its energy began to twist and expand, sending shockwaves through the chamber. Reverie's vision blurred as whispers filled their mind, more distinct now. You are not ready yet. With a sudden surge of strength, the mark released a burst of energy that shattered the ritual's dome. The elders staggered back, their faces pale. Reverie collapsed to their knees, trembling. Elder Sale was the first to recover. This is no ordinary taint, she said grimly. It has a will of its own. After the failed ritual, the council reconvened to assess the situation. Reverie, still shaken, sat before them. This mark is more than a symbol, Elder Marin began. It is a connection, an anchor to the abyss, but it does not appear malicious. Not malicious? Sale snapped. It nearly overwhelmed our combined strength. How can you dismiss its danger? I'm not dismissing it, Marin replied calmly. I'm suggesting that its nature is more complex. Reverie, you said the mark felt familiar. Can you explain? Reverie hesitated. It's hard to describe. When I touch its energy, it doesn't feel hostile. It feels like it's trying to guide me, but I don't understand to what. The room fell silent. Finally, Marin spoke again. This is unprecedented. If the mark is truly sentient, it may hold answers we cannot yet see. Reverie, the choice is yours. We can attempt another cleansing, though it may harm you, or you can study the mark under strict supervision. Reverie took a deep breath, the weight of the decision pressing heavily on them. I'll study it. I need to understand what this means for myself and for Dormiria. The council reluctantly agreed, granting Reverie limited freedom to explore the mark's nature. Alone in their chamber, they meditated on its energy, probing it with caution. Over time, the whispers grew clearer, forming fragmented sentences. Seek the veil, truth lies beyond. Reverie began cross-referencing the mark's patterns with ancient texts in the Codex of Reveries. Hidden within obscure passages, they found descriptions of similar marks, referred to as echoes. According to the Codex, These marks were not curses but catalysts granted to those destined to bridge Dormiria and the Abyss. Bridge Dormiria and the Abyss? Reverie murmured. Is that my purpose? The realization sent a chill through them. If the Codex was correct, the mark wasn't a sign of corruption but a call to action. It wasn't the Abyss trying to consume them. It was trying to awaken them. Reverie presented their findings to the council, detailing the mark's connection to the echoes and its potential purpose. Elder Sale remained skeptical, but Elder Marin saw merit in their argument. This doesn't absolve you of caution, Marin warned. The Abyss is unpredictable, and even a tool can become a weapon in the wrong hands. I understand, Reverie said firmly, but this mark chose me for a reason. If I ignore it, I may be denying Dormiria the chance to understand the Abyss and to protect ourselves from it. The council agreed to allow Reverie to continue their studies under close observation. As they left the hall, a sense of purpose settled over them. The mark, once a source of fear, now felt like a key, a way to uncover the truths Dormiria had long ignored. And deep within their essence, the mark pulsed once more, as if in quiet approval. Chapter 4. Whispers of the Harbinger. The shimmering dream light of Dormiria had always felt like a sanctuary, but for Reverie, it was starting to feel like a fragile facade. Shadows seemed to linger longer, and faint echoes of whispers reached their ears when no one was speaking. The mark on their essence, though dormant for now, still pulsed faintly, as though attuned to something beyond Dormiria's veil. Reverie's unease led them to seek out Cyrena Moonglade, the one person who might understand. Cyrena, a former lucid whisper, had once walked dangerously close to the Abyss herself. Her fall from grace had made her a pariah among the council, but her knowledge of forbidden lore was unmatched. Reverie found Cyrena at the edge of Dormiria, in the twilight plains where the dreamscape began to fray. Her presence was unmistakable, silver hair glowing faintly in the dim light, and her aura tinged with a peculiar mix of Dormirian light and abyssal shadow. She turned as Reverie approached, her expression guarded. I wondered how long it would take you to find me, Cyrena said, her voice soft but firm. Reverie hesitated, then stepped closer. I need answers, Cyrena, about the Abyss, about this. They raised their hand, revealing the mark. Cyrena's eyes widened slightly, but she quickly masked her reaction. You're playing a dangerous game, Reverie. I didn't ask for this, Reverie replied, their voice tinged with frustration. But it's here, and I can't ignore it. The council doesn't have answers, but I think you might. For a moment, Cyrena studied them in silence. Finally, she sighed. Come with me. She led Reverie to a secluded grove, shielded from prying eyes by a dome of dream light. The air within felt heavier, as though charged with unseen energy. Cyrena gestured for Reverie to sit, then began weaving a series of intricate symbols into the air. These symbols, Reverie said, recognizing their abyssal origins, are forbidden. So as asking questions about the Harbinger, Cyrena shot back, her tone sharp. But you came here for answers, didn't you? Reverie fell silent, watching as the symbols coalesced into a shimmering projection of Dormiria's ancient codex. The image flickered, revealing an illustration of a figure shrouded in darkness. Cyrena's voice lowered, as if speaking the name might summon the entity itself. The Harbinger of Waking. an ancient force that exists outside of Dormiria and the Abyss, yet intertwined with both. It thrives on imbalance, on severing the connections that sustain dreams and mortals alike. Reveries stared at the image, their heart pounding. Sever the connection? Why? Because Dormiria and the Abyss are not meant to coexist, Cyrena explained. At least, not according to the Harbinger. It believes that dreams and reality should remain separate, that mortals who linger too long in the dreamscape weaken the boundaries between realms. But that would destroy Dormiria. And mortals, Reveries said, horrified. How can anyone justify that? The Harbinger doesn't see destruction, Cyrena replied. It sees purity, a return to what it believes is the natural order. Reveries' thoughts raced as they tried to make sense of this revelation. The whispers they had heard, the mark on their essence, the strange anomalies in Dormiria. Could it all be connected to this Harbinger? Cyrena, they said slowly, have you ever felt its presence? Cyrena's expression darkened. Yes, when I first ventured too close to the Abyss, I felt it watching me, testing me. I resisted its pull, but it left a mark, not like yours, but enough to remind me of what I'd seen. Do you think it's responsible for my mark? Reverie asked. Cyrena hesitated, then shook her head. The Harbinger's influence is subtle, insidious. It doesn't leave marks. It leaves doubt. That mark of yours is different. It's tied to the Abyss. Yes, but I don't think the Harbinger put it there. If anything, it might see you as a threat. Reverie frowned. A threat? Why? Because you're connected to both Dormiria and the Abyss, Cyrena said. If you can learn to balance that power, you might be able to stop the Harbinger. Cyrena stepped closer, her gaze intense. Listen to me, Reverie. If you keep digging into this, you'll be walking a fine line. The Harbinger's whispers will try to sway you, and the Council will see your actions as betrayal. You'll have to decide where your loyalties lie. Reverie looked down at the mark on their hand, its faint glow reflecting their inner turmoil. I don't know if I can make that choice. Dormiria is my home, but the Abyss, it feels like it's part of me now. That's what makes you dangerous, Cyrena said, and powerful. But power comes with a price. If you want to face the Harbinger, you'll need to understand both realms. And you'll need to accept that neither side will fully trust you. Reverie nodded slowly. I don't want power for its own sake. I just want to protect Dormiria. Then start by protecting yourself, Cyrena said. She reached into her cloak and pulled out a small, glowing crystal. Take this. It's a fragment of dream light, infused with abyssal energy. It'll help you shield your essence if the Harbinger tries to reach you. Reverie accepted the crystal, feeling its energy hum against their skin. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Cyrena said. You're stepping into a battle that most wouldn't dare face. Just remember, the Harbinger feeds on despair. Don't let it consume yours. That night, as Reverie meditated with the crystal, they felt a faint ripple in the dreamscape. The air grew heavy, and a voice whispered in their mind, low and haunting, you cannot resist forever. Your dreams will fall, and with them, all you hold dear. Reverie's eyes snapped open, their breath quickened. For a moment, the mark on their essence flared brightly, as if responding to the voice. But as they clutched the crystal, the light dimmed, and the whispers faded. For now, they were safe. but the Harbinger's presence loomed closer, and Reverie knew their journey had only just begun. Chapter 5: Shadows of Doubt. The Codex of Reveries was one of Dormiria's most guarded treasures, containing the collective knowledge of countless dreamweavers across millennia. Its pages shimmered with fragments of memories woven into intricate patterns that only a skilled, lucid whisper could decipher. Reverie had spent many hours within its hallowed chamber, seeking guidance, answers, and now, desperately, truth. The chamber housing the Codex was eerily quiet, save for the faint hum of dream light that illuminated the room. Reverie stood before the tome, their hands hovering above its glowing surface. The Codex pulsed faintly, as if alive, responding to their touch. With a deep breath, they focused their energy and began to weave their query into the dreamlight. As the Codex responded, its pages shifted and rearranged themselves, revealing ancient, faded symbols. The text that emerged was fractured, its words scattered like fragments of a broken dream. Reverie frowned, straining to make sense of the disjointed phrases. The Harbinger, a shadow between realms, thrives on despair. Fractured dreams feed its power. Mortals and dreamweavers alike, destined to fall if balance is lost. The words sent a chill down Reverie's spine. The fragmented nature of the text felt deliberate, as if someone or something had tried to obscure the truth. Reverie's mind raced. The Harbinger was no mere myth, and its connection to fractured dreams and despair was disturbingly clear. But what was its ultimate goal? And why was it tied to their growing affinity with the Abyss? As Reverie delved deeper, they found themselves drawn into the Codex's Dreamscape, a labyrinth of swirling light and shadow, where whispers echoed faintly. The whispers seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, growing louder as they moved through the labyrinth. Despair feeds me. Fractured dreams are my domain. You cannot escape what you are becoming. Reverie spun around, their heart pounding. The whispers felt personal, as though the Codex itself was channeling the Harbinger's voice. For a moment, the labyrinth darkened, and a shadowy figure appeared in the distance. It was indistinct, its form flickering like a flame. "Who are you?" Reverie demanded, their voice echoing through the void. The figure didn't answer directly. Instead, it extended a hand, and the dreamscape around them shifted. Scenes of broken dreams appeared, mortals trapped in nightmares, their despair palpable. Reverie could feel their anguish, their hopelessness, and it was almost overwhelming. "Why are you showing me this?" Reverie asked, their voice trembling. "Because this is what I am," the figure replied, its voice a chilling blend of many tones. "I am born of despair, sustained by it, and soon I will be more than whispers in the dark." The dreamscape collapsed around Reverie, and they were jolted back to the Codex chamber, gasping for air. Their mark burned faintly, a reminder that the encounter was not merely a product of their imagination. Reverie sat in the chamber for a long time, their mind racing. The Harbinger's words echoed in their thoughts, intertwining with the fragmented phrases from the Codex. The Council's warnings about the Abyss came rushing back, but for the first time, Reverie began to question the rigidity of Dormiria's teachings. The Abyss was forbidden, the Harbinger was a threat, and yet neither seemed entirely separate from Dormiria. If despair and fractured dreams fueled the Harbinger's power, was Dormiria truly immune to its influence? Reveries' gaze fell on the glowing crystal sirena had given them. Its light flickered softly, a reminder of her warning. The Harbinger feeds on despair. Don't let it consume yours. Determined to uncover more, Reveries sought out Eldrin, one of the Council's most senior Dreamweavers. Eldrin had spent centuries studying the Codex, and was known for his measured approach, even toward forbidden topics. Reverie found him in the Hall of Reflection. His figure stooped slightly as he studied a constellation of dreams suspended in the air. He turned as they approached, his expression curious but wary. "Reverie," Eldrin said, "you seem troubled. I need your insight," Reverie said, not bothering to hide their urgency. "On the Harbinger." Eldrin's expression hardened. "That name is not spoken lightly." "I know," Reverie replied, "but I found references to it in the Codex. Fractured dreams, despair, an entity that exists between Dormiria and the Abyss. I need to understand what it is, and why it's connected to me." Eldrin's silence stretched for a long moment. Finally, he sighed. "The Harbinger is a danger we rarely speak of, even among the Council. It is said to be as old as Dormiria itself, a force that thrives on imbalance and suffering. Some believe it was born from the first nightmare, a manifestation of all that is broken in the Dreamscape. Can it be stopped?" Reverie asked. Eldrin shook his head. "No one knows. The Harbinger has been quiet for centuries, but its whispers have been recorded throughout history. It is not a being in the traditional sense. It is a force, a concept made manifest. It is to fight despair itself." Reverie felt a knot of frustration tighten in their chest. Then why doesn't the Council prepare for it? Why not teach Dreamweavers to recognize its influence? Because to acknowledge it is to invite it. Eldrin said gravely, "The Harbinger's power grows when mortals and Dreamweavers alike succumb to doubt and fear. That is why we focus on light, on hope. It is the only way to keep it at bay." Eldrin's words offered little comfort. As Reverie left the Hall of Reflection, their mind was awash with doubt. The Harbinger wasn't just a shadowy legend. It was a real, looming threat. And yet, Dormiria's leaders seemed content to ignore it, relying on hope and silence as their only defenses. The mark on their essence burned faintly, as if in response to their turmoil. Reverie clutched the crystal sirena had given them, feeling its energy steady their thoughts. For the first time, they began to wonder if Dormiria's rigid adherence to tradition was not just flawed, but dangerous. If the Harbinger thrived on fractured dreams and despair, then perhaps the true danger wasn't the Abyss or the Harbinger itself, but the unwillingness to confront the truth. Chapter 6. The Phantom's Lure. The Dreamscape unraveled before Reverie's eyes, its vibrant hues dissolving into an oppressive void. Strands of golden light, once the lifeblood of the mortal's dream, snapped and withered as a deep chill settled over the realm. A low, resonant hum thrummed in the air, vibrating through Reverie's core. They focused their energy, weaving threads of stability in an attempt to halt the collapse. The mortal's shadowed form flickered in the distance, trapped in the chaos. Reverie reached for them, their voice steady despite the storm around them. "Hold on, I'll get you out." But before they could act further, the oppressive hum morphed into a mocking laughter. The sound echoed from every direction, wrapping around them like a suffocating shroud. Reverie froze, their pulse quickening. "You've wandered too far, Dreamweaver," a voice whispered. It was layered and otherworldly, resonating with both menace and allure. A shadowy figure emerged from the void. It was formless at first, a swirling mass of darkness, but as it drew closer, it coalesced into a humanoid silhouette. Its face remained obscured, but piercing silver eyes glinted like twin stars in the abyss. "I've been waiting for this moment." "Reverie," the figure said, its tone almost playful. Reveries' breath caught. The mark on their essence, a faint glowing sigil hidden beneath their form, began to burn with an intensity they hadn't felt before. "Who are you?" they demanded, summoning a defensive barrier of light around themselves. The figure chuckled, the sound resonating unnaturally. "I am an emissary of the Harbinger," it said, "and I bring an invitation." Reveries' barrier flickered, the sheer presence of the emissary pressing against their defenses. "The Harbinger," they repeated, the name feeling heavy on their tongue. "Why would an agent of destruction approach me?" The emissary tilted its head, its silver eyes narrowing. Destruction is such a narrow word for what the Harbinger seeks. Dormiria would have you believe we are chaos incarnate, but that is only their fear speaking. We are evolution, Reverie. We are freedom. "I don't need your freedom," Reverie said, keeping their voice firm despite the tremor in their hands. "I've seen what the Harbinger's whispers do to dreams, to people. Despair follows wherever you tread." And yet, the emissary countered smoothly. "Here you stand, marked by the abyss, already wielding its power. Can you truly deny the strength it grants you? The clarity?" Reverie faltered, their mind racing. They thought of the moments when the mark's influence had surged through them, when their abilities had felt sharper, more instinctive. But at what cost? "Strength isn't worth corruption," they said finally. "Corruption?" The emissary's form shimmered, and for a moment it seemed almost human. "Or is that merely what Dormiria has taught you to believe? The abyss is a tool, no different than the light you weave. It is the wielder's intent that determines its purpose." The void shifted around them, growing colder and darker. Reverie felt the dreamscape slipping further into collapse, the mortal's presence dimming like a fading star. The emissary stepped closer, its gaze never wavering. "Let me show you," it said softly. It extended a hand, its shadowy form rippling like water. "Let me guide you to the truth. Dormiria's chains bind you, but the Harbinger can set you free. Think of what you could become, of what you could do for those trapped in suffering." Reverie's heart pounded. The emissary's words wormed their way into their thoughts, weaving a tapestry of doubt. Dormiria's rigidity had frustrated them for years, its unyielding rules often feeling more like barriers than safeguards. And yet, "No," Reverie said, their voice steady despite the turmoil within. "You speak of freedom, but all I see is destruction. I won't trade one form of control for another." The emissary's form grew darker, its silver eyes blazing like twin beacons. "Such resolve," it said, its voice colder now. "But resolve without purpose is fragile. The mark will guide you to us when you are ready, when you see the truth." With a wave of its hand, the emissary vanished into the void. The oppressive weight lifted, but the dreamscape's collapse accelerated, threads of light snapping like brittle cords. Reverie gritted their teeth, focusing every ounce of their energy on repairing the realm. The mark on their essence flared, pulsing in rhythm with the dreamscape's instability. Reverie drew on its power reluctantly, weaving with a speed and precision that felt almost alien. The dreamscape resisted, as though it too were caught between the light of Dormiria and the shadow of the abyss. "Come on," Reverie whispered, sweat beading on their brow. They pulled the remaining fragments together, knitting them into a fragile but stable tapestry. The mortal's form reappeared, their breathing shallow but steady. With a final surge of effort, Reverie anchored the dreamscape. The realm stabilized, its colors returning in muted shades. Exhausted, Reverie collapsed to their knees, their chest heaving. Back in Dormiria, Reverie sat alone in their quarters, staring at their reflection in the crystalline surface of the Codex of Reveries. The mark on their essence pulsed faintly, a constant reminder of the emissary's words. Freedom, power, truth. They clenched their fists, frustration and fear warring within them. The emissary's temptation had been more than just words. It had unearthed doubts Reverie had buried long ago. Dormiria's rules had always felt suffocating, but now, the cracks in their foundation seemed impossible to ignore. What if they're hiding something? Reverie whispered, their voice barely audible. What if the abyss isn't what we've been taught to fear? They shook their head, trying to dispel the thoughts. But the questions lingered, as persistent as the mark itself. The dreamscape had been saved, but the encounter had left Reverie shaken and uncertain. One thing was clear, this was only the beginning. Chapter 7. Dreamfall. The dreamscape shimmered weakly, its once vivid colors dissolving into muted grays and shadows. Reverie stood at its fractured center, their essence pulsing with unease. What had been a routine dream-weaving task had spiraled into chaos. The emissary's cryptic encounter lingered like a poison in their thoughts, its words echoing in the void. The mortal dreamer, a faint silhouette, hovered at the dream's edge. They were barely tethered to the realm, their essence flickering like a dying ember. Reverie clenched their fists and reached for them, weaving threads of Dormirian light to stabilize the realm. But the energy felt brittle and unfamiliar. It resisted their will, unraveling faster than they could repair it. Shadows slithered through the dreamscape, consuming the golden threads and warping the terrain into a dark, jagged wasteland. "Stay with me," Reverie called to the dreamer, their voice firm despite the growing dread. The mortal remained still, their form blurred as the dreamscape teetered on collapse. A low hum vibrated through the air, deep and resonant, growing louder with each passing moment. Reverie froze, their breath catching as the sound transformed into a mocking laughter that surrounded them. So fragile, a voice murmured, layered and otherworldly. The shadows coalesced into a form, humanoid yet alien, its features obscured save for eyes that burned like molten silver. "Did you truly think you could hold it all together?" Reverie's heart raced. "You again," they said, summoning a barrier of light around themselves. The emissary. The figure tilted its head, an eerie smile forming in the void. "Call me what you will. I am but a messenger, a guide to truths you've only begun to glimpse." The emissary's presence pressed against the fragile dreamscape, its form rippling like smoke. The threads of Dormirian light wavered and snapped, unable to withstand the weight of its aura. "This realm crumbles because of your stubbornness," the emissary said, stepping closer. "You cling to Dormiria's failing light, yet the abyss calls to you. Embrace it, and you will see how effortlessly it can repair what your precious order cannot. Reverie felt the mark on their essence flare, its heat spreading through their form. They gritted their teeth, resisting the pull. The abyss doesn't heal, it consumes. I've seen what it does. And yet, the emissary countered smoothly. You are still standing because of it. That mark is a gift, whether you admit it or not. You've already begun to see the truth. Dormiria binds you with rules, but the abyss offers freedom. Power. I don't need your power. Reverie spat, weaving light with renewed determination. I'll save this dream without your help. The emissary chuckled darkly, the sound reverberating through the collapsing realm. Foolish, but admirable. Let us see how long your resolve lasts. The void around them pulsed, and the dreamscape quaked violently. Reverie fought to hold it together, their essence straining under the effort. The mortal's form flickered dangerously, their connection to the dreamscape hanging by a thread. The emissary's words echoed in Reverie's mind as they poured their remaining strength into stabilizing the dreamscape. But no matter how hard they tried, the light faltered. The shadows advanced, devouring the realm piece by piece. The whispers began again, seductive and relentless. You cannot save them like this. Let the mark guide you. Let the abyss show you what Dormiria cannot. Reverie hesitated, their focus wavering. The mark burned brighter, its energy pulsing in rhythm with the collapsing realm. They knew the dangers of tapping into it again, but the dreamer's fading essence left them no choice. I won't let them fall, Reverie whispered, their voice trembling. They reached inward, drawing on the mark's energy. The abyss surged through them, dark and volatile, but they tempered it with Dormirian light. The fusion created a swirling vortex of energy, a precarious balance that teetered on the edge of control. The dreamscape responded, the shadows recoiled, and the fraying threads of light reknit themselves into a fragile framework. Reverie channeled every ounce of focus into the repair, anchoring the mortal's essence to the renewed realm. For a moment, the dreamscape stabilized. The mortal's form grew solid, their breathing steady. Reverie exhaled in relief, but the strain of the effort left them trembling. Back in Dormiria, Reverie sat alone in their quarters, their essence flickering faintly from exhaustion. The mark on their form glowed, faintly, its presence a constant reminder of what had transpired. They couldn't ignore the questions swirling in their mind. The emissary's words, the mark's power, the fusion of light and shadow. It all pointed to a truth that Dormiria's teachings had never addressed. Was the abyss truly the enemy, or was it something more complex? Something Dormiria feared because they couldn't control it? Reverie stared at their reflection in the Codex of Reveries. The mark pulsed faintly, a steady rhythm that matched their heartbeat. For the first time, they wondered if the Council's warnings had been incomplete or deliberately misleading. What are you hiding? Reverie whispered, their voice barely audible. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken answers. Despite their doubts, one truth stood out. They had saved the dreamer. The dreamscape had stabilized, albeit through methods that defied Dormirian principles. Reverie's resolve hardened. If the answers they sought weren't in Dormiria's teachings, they would find them elsewhere, even if it meant walking the line between light and shadow. This isn't over, Reverie said, their voice steady. Not for me, not for Dormiria. the mark glowed softly in the darkness, a symbol of the path that lay ahead. Chapter 8. A Web of Lies. The Codex of Reveries lay open before Reverie, its ancient pages illuminated by the pale, ethereal glow of their quarters. The delicate, flowing script that chronicled Dormiria's dream-weaving history seemed to pulse with a life of its own, as though the words carried the weight of unspoken truths. Reverie's fingers hovered over a section they had never noticed before, a faint indentation on the parchment catching their eye. They traced the markings, feeling a subtle shift in the Codex's energy. It was as though the book recognized their presence and responded to the mark on their essence. A faint ripple coursed through the air, and the script began to change, revealing hidden passages that had been obscured for centuries. Reverie's heart raced as they leaned closer, the newly revealed text shimmering like a mirage. These passages spoke of a time long before Dormiria's strict hierarchy, before the Abyss had been labeled as forbidden and corrupt. The writings hinted at an ancient connection, a symbiosis between Dormiria and the Abyss. The passages described a balance, a time when Dormiria drew from both light and shadow to weave dreams of unparalleled beauty and complexity. The Abyss, far from being a source of corruption, was a wellspring of untamed potential, its energy complementing Dormiria's disciplined light. Together, they maintained the harmony of the dreamscape, guiding mortals through their subconscious struggles. But something had changed. The text grew darker, recounting an event only referred to as the fracture. A rift had formed between the two forces, a catastrophic division that split the dreamscape in two. Dormiria turned inward, isolating itself from the Abyss, while the Abyss became an entity of chaos, its energies labeled as forbidden and destructive. Reverie's eyes widened as they read further. The text suggested that the Council had deliberately obscured this history, altering Dormiria's teachings to paint the Abyss as a corrupting influence. The words resonated deeply, echoing the emissaries' cryptic taunts during their recent encounter. Reverie sat back, their thoughts swirling in chaos. The Council had always presented themselves as the protectors of Dormiria, the guardians of mortals' dreams. But if these passages were true, then the Council's teachings were built on lies. The strict dichotomy of light and shadow, the warnings against the Abyss, it was all part of a fabricated narrative. Why would they hide this? Reverie wondered, their hands trembling as they closed the Codex. What were they so afraid of? A flicker of anger sparked within them. They had risked everything to uphold Dormiria's principles, sacrificing their own safety to save dreamers. And yet, the Council had withheld the very truths that could have guided them. Reverie's gaze fell on the mark on their essence, its faint glow a constant reminder of their connection to the Abyss. They thought back to the power they had wielded in the collapsing dreamscape, the fusion of Dormirian light and abyssal energy that had stabilized the realm. Could it be that the balance described in the Codex still held true? That the harmony of light and shadow was not only possible but necessary? Reverie's thoughts were interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. They quickly concealed the Codex, their heart pounding. The Council rarely intervened directly, but their growing scrutiny of Reverie's actions was no secret. "Enter," they said, forcing calm into their voice. The door opened to reveal Cyrena Moonglade. Her expression was serious, her silver eyes scanning the room before settling on Reverie. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "Cyrena," Reveries said, rising to their feet. "What brings you here?" Cyrena crossed her arms, her gaze flickering to the concealed Codex. "Word travels quickly in Dormiria. The Council is keeping a close watch on you." Reveries' stomach twisted. "I've done nothing wrong." "Perhaps not yet," Cyrena replied, her tone measured. "But they've noticed the mark. They've noticed the changes in your dream weaving. They won't admit it openly, but they fear you, Reverie." Reverie met her gaze, struggling to keep their voice steady. "And you fear me too?" Cyrena hesitated, then shook her head. "No, but I fear what the Council might do to you if they sense you've uncovered too much." Her words hung heavy in the air. Reverie weighed their options, torn between confiding in Cyrena and protecting the secrets they had uncovered. After a moment's hesitation, Reverie made their decision. They retrieved the Codex, flipping to the hidden passages. Cyrena's eyes widened as she read the text, her expression shifting from disbelief to grim understanding. "This changes everything," Cyrena murmured, tracing the ancient script with her fingers. "The Council has always spoken of the Abyss as a threat to be contained, a force of destruction. But if this is true, then the Abyss was once part of us." Reverie nodded. "They've lied to us, Cyrena. They've built Dormiria on a foundation of fear and half-truths. If the Abyss and Dormiria were once intertwined, then perhaps we've been fighting against something we were meant to embrace." Cyrena closed the Codex, her expression unreadable. "If the Council discovers this, they'll stop at nothing to silence you. They'll brand you as a traitor, a danger to Dormiria." "Let them try," Reverie said, their voice firm. "I won't stop searching for the truth." As Cyrena left, promising to keep Reverie's discovery a secret, Reverie felt a renewed sense of purpose. The Codex had revealed the truth, but it was only the beginning. If Dormiria's teachings were built on lies, then the Dreamscape itself might hold the answers they sought. Reverie approached the mirror in their quarters, studying the faint glow of the mark. It no longer felt like a curse, but a symbol of the balance they sought to restore. "I'll uncover the truth," they whispered, their reflections staring back with determination. "And I'll show Dormiria what it means to truly dream." Chapter 9. The Council Divided. The Council Chamber of Dormiria loomed before Reverie, its towering crystalline pillars radiating a gentle, iridescent light. Each step forward felt heavier, burdened by the revelations they carried. The Codex of Reveries, with its hidden truths, was safely concealed in their possession, but the weight of its knowledge pressed heavily on their heart. As the chamber doors opened, Reverie was met with the familiar sight of the Council, a semicircle of 13 figures cloaked in flowing robes, their faces obscured by shimmering veils of light. Their voices were the foundation of Dormiria's laws, their decrees shaping the dreams of mortals and the conduct of dreamweavers alike. But as Reverie stepped into the center of the room, the atmosphere was different, charged with tension. The whispers among the Council had grown louder in recent weeks, and Reverie knew they were the source of that unrest. "Reverie," intoned Alaris, the High Arbiter, her voice calm yet firm. "You have requested this audience. Speak your mind." Reverie took a steadying breath. "I've uncovered truths that challenge what we've been taught about the Abyss. The Codex of Reveries contains hidden passages, accounts of a time when Dormiria and the Abyss were not adversaries but partners in maintaining balance. These revelations suggest that our teachings may not be complete. A murmur rippled through the chamber, breaking the usual decorum. Some of the veiled figures leaned forward, their postures rigid with either interest or suspicion. Ilaris raised a hand, silencing the growing unrest. "Are you accusing the Council of deceit?" she asked, her voice sharp. "I'm accusing no one," Reverie replied carefully. "But I believe there are truths we have forgotten, or perhaps ignored. If we are to protect Dormiria and the Dreamers, we must understand the full history of our realm." It was Counselor Markion who broke the silence, his voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. "This is dangerous rhetoric. The Abyss is a force of chaos and corruption. If these truths you've discovered were hidden, it was for good reason. Digging into forbidden knowledge will only lead to ruin." Reverie turned to face him, their hands clenched at their sides. "And yet, the dreamscapes grow more unstable by the day. Shadows of the Abyss are slipping through our defenses. Perhaps it is not ignorance, but our refusal to seek balance that invites disaster." Markion scoffed. "You presume to lecture us? The Council has safeguarded Dormiria for eons. Your recent transgressions suggest you are the one inviting disaster, not us." Before Reverie could respond, another voice rang out, gentler yet resolute. "Enough, Markion," said Counselor Elenara, her veil glowing softly. "Reverie's actions may be unconventional, but their discoveries cannot be dismissed outright. If there is even a fragment of truth in their claims, we owe it to Dormiria to investigate." The chamber erupted into heated debate. Reverie stood in the center, watching as the council divided before their eyes. Markion and his faction spoke of loyalty, tradition, and the dangers of delving into the unknown. Elenara and her supporters argued for curiosity, adaptation, and the pursuit of understanding. "This is not a matter for debate." Markion barked. "Reverie's mark is proof enough that the Abyss has already corrupted them. We should sever their connection to Dormiria before they do more harm, and risk losing one of our most skilled dreamweavers." Elenara countered. "Reverie has saved countless dreamers, even when others faltered. Perhaps it is their unique perspective that Dormiria needs most." Ilaris, seated at the center of the semicircle, listened silently, her hands steepled before her. When the arguments began to wane, she raised her hand again, commanding silence. "Reverie," Ilaris said, her voice heavy with authority, "these are grave accusations and revelations. You have stirred the council to discord, yet I sense that your intent is genuine." Reverie nodded, meeting her veiled gaze. "I only seek the truth." Ilaris was quiet for a long moment before speaking again. "The council is divided on this matter. While some of us view your discoveries as dangerous, others see merit in your pursuit. I cannot condone unbridled exploration of the Abyss, but nor can I deny the importance of your findings. Thus, I propose a compromise." The tension in the room thickened. "You will continue your investigation under strict oversight. A member of this council will accompany you on your journey, ensuring that your actions remain within Dormiria's laws. Should you uncover further truths, they will be brought directly to the council for deliberation." Markion bristled. "You cannot be serious, Ilaris. This is a dangerous gamble." "It is a measured one," Ilaris replied sharply. "We cannot afford to ignore the instability of the dreamscapes. If Reverie's discoveries hold answers, we must pursue them, but we will do so cautiously." The decision was made. The council chose Elenara to accompany Reverie, her supportive stance making her the ideal candidate for the task. As the chamber emptied, Reverie found themselves alone with her, the weight of the moment sinking in. "You've made powerful enemies today," Elenara said softly, her tone both sympathetic and firm. "But you've also gained allies. Remember that." Reverie nodded. "Thank you, counselor." She smiled faintly. "Call me Elenara. If we're to uncover the truth, we'll need trust, not formality." As they left the chamber together, Reverie couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope amidst the uncertainty. The council's division was both a burden and an opportunity. For the first time, the path ahead was clear, dangerous, uncertain, but undeniably theirs to walk. They whispered to themselves, a silent promise: the truth will not remain hidden. Chapter 10. Cyrena's Betrayal. The tension in the air was palpable as Reverie entered the twilight-lit glade. Dormiria's ethereal glow was muted here, replaced by a shadowy stillness that made every sound feel amplified. This was Cyrena Moonglade's chosen meeting place, a secluded pocket of Dormiria untouched by the council's watchful eyes. Reverie's heart raced with uncertainty. Cyrena had always been an enigma, her motives shrouded in mystery, but until now, Reverie had thought they shared a common goal: uncovering the truth. But something about this meeting felt wrong. Cyrena stood at the heart of the glade, her silver hair shimmering faintly in the dim light, and her piercing eyes locked onto Reverie. She held herself with an almost regal confidence, her posture betraying none of the tension that gripped Reverie. "You came," she said, her voice cool and measured. Reverie nodded, keeping a cautious distance. "You said it was urgent. What's this about?" Cyrena's lips curved into a faint smile, though it lacked warmth. "It's about the truth, Reverie. The truth you've been chasing. And the truth you've been avoiding." Reverie frowned. "If you have answers, then stop speaking in riddles. Tell me what you know." Cyrena tilted her head, studying Reverie as though weighing their worth. "The Harbinger of Waking," she began, her voice low but steady, "is not the enemy you think it is. It is a force of liberation, a power that will free Dormiria from its chains." Reverie froze. "What are you saying?" Cyrena stepped closer, her eyes glinting with a dangerous light. "Dormiria is a cage, Reverie. The Council's rules, their control over Dreamweavers, their fear of the Abyss, it's all built on lies. The Harbinger seeks to break that cage, to sever the connection between this realm and the mortal world, so that Dormiria can finally be free." Reverie's mind raced, struggling to process her words. Severing the connection would destroy Dormiria. It would destroy the Dreamers. "No," Cyrena countered sharply. "It would destroy the Council's control. The Dreamers would adapt, just as they always have. And Dormiria would thrive without their interference." Reverie took a step back, the weight of Cyrena's words sinking in. "You've allied yourself with the Harbinger," they said, their voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and anger. Cyrena didn't deny it. Instead, she crossed her arms, her expression defiant. "I've seen the truth, Reverie. The Harbinger isn't the destroyer the Council claims it to be. It is a force of change, a force that Dormiria desperately needs." Reverie shook their head, their emotions a storm within them. "Change through destruction? You can't possibly believe that's the answer." The Harbinger thrives on despair and fractured dreams. How can you align yourself with something so corrupt? Cyrena's eyes narrowed, her calm exterior finally cracking. And what about the abyss, Reverie? You've tapped into its power. You've felt its pull. You truly believe it's any different? Or are you just too afraid to admit that it's the only reason you've come this far? Reverie faltered, her words striking a nerve. The abyss is dangerous, but it's not inherently evil. It's a tool, a force to be understood and balanced, not something to blindly embrace. Cyrena scoffed, spoken like a true pawn of the council. They've already sown their fear into you, just as they've done to countless others. The air in the glade grew colder, and shadows began to stir at the edges of Reverie's vision. They realized too late that Cyrena was drawing on the abyssal energy she had claimed to abhor. Cyrena, don't do this, Reverie pleaded, their voice firm yet tinged with desperation. We don't have to be enemies. We can find another way, together. Cyrena's laugh was bitter and hollow. There is no other way, Reverie. The council will never change. And if you stand in my way, I won't hesitate. Before Reverie could respond, Cyrena raised her hand, and the shadows surged forward like living things. They twisted and coiled, forming monstrous shapes that lunged toward Reverie with startling speed. Reverie reacted instinctively, summoning a protective barrier of shimmering light. The shadowy forms collided with the barrier, their hisses and screeches echoing through the glade. But Reverie knew they couldn't hold the defense forever. As the clash continued, Reverie's thoughts raced. They didn't want to fight Cyrena, not like this. But her allegiance to the Harbinger made her a threat not only to them, but to Dormiria itself, summoning every ounce of their willpower. Reverie wove a powerful burst of energy, dispersing the shadows and creating a brief opening. Cyrena staggered back, her expression a mixture of anger and disappointment. You're stronger than I thought, she admitted, her voice laced with grudging respect. But you're still clinging to the council's lies. One day, you'll see the truth. And when that day comes, I hope you'll have the courage to join me. With that, Cyrena vanished into the shadows, leaving Reverie alone in the glade. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by Reverie's ragged breaths. Reverie stood there for what felt like an eternity, their mind reeling. Cyrena Moonglade, an ally, a confidant, and perhaps the closest thing they'd had to a friend, was now their enemy. Worse, her words lingered like a toxin, planting seeds of doubt that Reverie couldn't ignore. Had the council truly hidden the full truth about the Harbinger? Was Cyrena right about Dormiria's need for change? Or was she merely a pawn in a far greater, more sinister game? As Reverie turned to leave the glade, one thing was clear. The path ahead had grown even more treacherous. The shadows of the abyss and the Harbinger's influence were spreading, and the lines between friend and foe were becoming increasingly blurred. They whispered to themselves, a solemn vow, I won't let Dormiria fall.
You've just listened to chapters 1 through 10 of Mistwoven Legends, Threads of the Forgotten, written by Raoul, and I'm your host, Nayara, an Audible Archives original. The veil weakens, the Harbinger whispers louder, and Reverie's choices are leading them deeper into the labyrinth of lies and half-truths. But this is only the beginning. The next chapters will bring shadows closer, and every forgotten thread will demand to be woven back into fate. If this story pulled you into the mist, show your support, like, comment, and subscribe. Your voice helps keep these legends breathing. Until the next part, guard your dreams and never trust the silence.
Another chapter closes, but the archives remain, waiting for the next seeker of stories. Here, no voice is lost, no tale truly ends. This is Audible Archives. Until we meet again, may your mind wander freely and your heart never forget the stories we share.